And Ms. Moore has been really good about joining this committee and coming to see us. And if he waits for to send him to Washington to help President Trump get his agenda approved. Ms. Moore?
How long y'all want me to talk?
Till you're 6 foot under.
Okay.
I'm just kidding.
I was asking her how long they wanted me to talk, so
Till you're done.
well, okay. I won't take too much of your time, but thank you guys. Again, Autauga County was big for us on the 14th. I tell you, we were watching the returns come in, and I kind of knew we'd do all right in Coffee County. You know, that was home county, and as they started to come in, when I realized up here it was going about 2-1 for us, and it was the second largest county in the precinct, I told Heather, I said, we're in pretty good shape. We won the top, I think it was 13 out of 15 counties, is that right? So it was an amazing night for our family, for our team. I think by 8:03 they had called the race, and so we were in a crowded primary, y'all know that, and so it's certainly humbling to be here and stand before you. And y'all have heard the campaign speeches probably if you've been in these groups and clubs. I could give all my opponents speeches, I think. So what I'm going to do is give you a little behind the scenes stuff that's been going on since we won the runoff. And so I'll start first by saying the morning I woke up, it was after the runoff. It had been a late night, not that late, but it seemed kind of tiring. And the Lord laid on my heart, Micah 6:8, he said, do justly, love mercy, and walk humbly. And so that's how I wanted to approach this, because I knew I'd all of a sudden have a lot of new friends, you know, people that maybe weren't on my team. But the one thing I've noticed about the president is he's uniting the Republican Party. And what do you say, well, Barry, what do you mean by that? He's such a prominent leader, but you notice his last two chief of staff have come from the House Freedom Caucus. That's the Mark Meadows of the world. The Jim Jordans, y'all know Jim. He's in the judiciary. He's been the point man defending the president during the impeachment. And then Mick Mulvaney, of course, was the chief prior to Mark Meadows. And so before the impeachment started, the night before the impeachment started, I went up and I met with the House Freedom Caucus, and there's only about 30 or 40 people in that room that are true to me. They're there for the right reasons, and that's the group I'll be joining. And so they're a conservative group, but the president has realized they're a trustworthy group too, as have I. Jim Jordan came on board early for us. He was one of few congressmen that came out for us on point, and he and Andy Biggs. You know, Andy Biggs is current chair of House Freedom Caucus, and so those are the guys that came on and kind of helped us pull this thing through. And so when we went over to the White House a few weeks ago, Heather and I had an opportunity to, it was September the 23rd actually, and so I told the people in Houston County today at lunch, I said, now I did not give the president COVID. They tried to accuse me of that, but I didn't have nothing to do with it. And so we went over, it was September 23rd, we got invited to go over. The reason I'll tell you all this backstory because I knew Mark Meadows, so I'll fill you in a little bit. But anyway, so we go to the White House, and you know you can take a +1. So there were 9 of us that were in good Republican districts. So they said, hey, these guys, you know, they're in good shape. They're going to finish well. They did well in their runoffs, and they're our kind of people, and they like the president. So they were going to bring us in to meet him. And so Heather, my chief of no staff, she said, hey, I want to be your +1. And I said, well, that'll be fine. And so we go over to the Washington building inside the White House complex there. No, the Eisenhower building. And so we're inside the complex, and they test us for COVID, and we waited till they got the all clear, of course. And so that's why I know I didn't give it to him. But anyway, so they called us down to the West Wing, and they put us in the Roosevelt room. And I don't know if you guys have ever heard of the Roosevelt room, but it's kind of neat because on the wall, they have 2 presidents. They have Franklin Delano Roosevelt and Teddy Roosevelt. And if it's a Republican in office at the time, then Teddy goes above the fireplace. If it's a Democrat, then they put Franklin above the fireplace. Well, currently, Teddy obviously is above the fireplace. And so we're sitting, this is a long table, you know, we're sitting here in the Roosevelt room, and Mark Meadows, chief of staff, walks in, and we get to talking a little bit. And he said, okay, we're going to go over into the Oval Office. And so Heather's at the end of this long table, and we go out a door right there, just right at the end of the room. And when I tell y'all, you cross a hall that's about as wide as these 2 tables right here, and you go in another door, and you come in the side of the Oval Office. And so Heather's about second in the group, maybe. You know, you can't take Sand Mountain nowhere. So she's in there. She goes in the Oval Office, and she's just taken back by it. I mean, we all were, obviously, but just the weight of the room. I mean, you've seen it on TV, you've seen it in the photos, but to walk in the Oval Office is pretty cool. And so, especially for folks who have no business in the Oval Office. So we walk in and Heather's wandering around looking up and she's kind of checking everything out. And we all are. And she looks to her right and there sits the president behind the Resolute desk. He's just grinning. He's not saying nothing. He's just watching her watch the room. And so that's the kind of guy he is. He didn't say anything. I think he was so taken back. He was so excited to see an everyday American citizen walk into the Oval Office and just observe the process. And so we went through and he asked us a lot of different questions about our district. And I tell you, he has a great command of numbers, which y'all could figure that if he's a billionaire, right? But the numbers that he knew for the district, like it didn't matter which congressman, where they was from, how am I doing in the Senate? Or how am I doing in the, your House race, blah, blah, blah. And I'm up 3 points here, how are we going to do over here? So he was going through the room like that. And he actually quizzed Heather and a couple of other people about what is your take on on the Supreme Court nomination? And so he asked Heather, he said, so what's your thoughts on that? And she said, well, Mr. President, I think Judge Barrett will do a good job. It says, I think she'll do a fine job. So I'm telling you all that to say this, if it goes south, it's Heather's fault. I didn't have anything to do with that.
I'm sure he really took that.
But anyway, so he had a list of 5, and so I think he just wanted to know what the people in the room thought about his choice. I think he already in his mind kind of had it made up, but he gave us a couple, 3 names, and he said, he just let them he polled the room. So anyway, I think he'd already made up his mind, but I thought it was kind of neat, but I tell everybody we'll blame Heather for that. But long story short, we had a great meeting with the president. He is working so hard, and when I'm talking about unity, in that room was Kevin McCarthy, who's the minority leader right now, and Mark Meadows. Now, they're kind of polar opposites in the Republican Party, really. I mean, Mark's kind of conservative, House Freedom Caucus guy. Kevin's been there a minute. He kind of works, and he's trying to be in leadership, wants to be speaker one day. And so, but the president, I noticed, was uniting those factions of the Republican Party. And when we get to seeing a leader that's doing that, I've often thought he could do that. He's doing it. But that's what we've got to do now. I mean, I had 7 people in a primary. We had a runoff, they spent a lot of money to beat us in a runoff. We got to unite. We got to come together because there's a greater fight we've got to fight on the horizon. And I don't even think in a lot of ways that it's just about Republicans and Democrats. And I know we're all Republicans in this room. But I truly believe that we're in a spiritual battle for the future of the country. In other words, I don't think that Republicans are going to solve it. I don't think the Democrats are going to solve it. I don't think it's a race battle. I think it's truly a spiritual battle for the future of the nation. And so that's how we want to approach governing. And Heather and I have agreed to this. And of course, Sherry, y'all heard her pray. We've been seeking the Lord through this process. And so, but the battle is just beginning. I told my kids, I said, really, winning the race was the easy part. And that seemed hard at the time. But governing in the current political environment is really going to be the challenge. And so we're going to need prayers because you see it all the time. I saw it in Montgomery. You'll see it in D.C., I'm sure, where good people go there and the system gets their hands on them and the hooks on them. But I'll tell you all this, we're going to join the House Freedom Caucus day 1. But I see the president working to unite the party. I've got a good relationship with Kevin McCarthy. Him and I have hit it off. And I tell everybody this story. There's a baseball team in D.C. I don't know if you guys know about it. And it's Republicans versus Democrats. They raise about $1 million a year for charity. And so the word got out that, hey, Barry played baseball in high school, and I did. That's been 50 years ago. But I played baseball in high school, and so I have agreed to play on the baseball team. And the reason I did that is not because I really want to get out and hurt myself or even try to play baseball after all these years, but the key is building relationships in D.C. Steve Scalise is on that team. Mo Brooks is on that team. A lot of the leadership from the Republican Party are on that Republican team. And so I'll get out of bed at 5:30 in the morning, probably starting about February in D.C. Can y'all imagine that, how cold that's going to be for me? But I'm going to go out and practice every day on that field. I'm going to make sure I stretch. But I'm going to go out and practice and build those relationships with those men on a baseball field. So I don't have to go through their staff. I don't have to go through a bunch of committees. I don't have to go through a bunch of leadership. I'm going to work with my teammates to make a difference in D.C. And that's with the House Freedom Caucus and the Republican baseball team because it's all about relationships. And so we are humbled, like I said earlier, to be in this position. And it really isn't, this was a calling on us, the reason I'm doing it. Nobody, I think Mr. Booth said to me earlier, he said, I can't imagine anybody wanting to go to D.C. in this current environment. And honestly, it's a calling. When I tell y'all it's a calling, we were called to do this. It didn't make sense a lot of times what we did. but we really earnestly sought the Lord in the process, and I think He's gotten us to this point. Now, we still got a long road ahead, like I said earlier, so we're going to cherish those prayers. We're going to cherish, we're going to build those relationships, and hopefully we can make a difference. I think we can. I think we can, but I couldn't have done it, we couldn't have done it without the likes of Randy Hickman. Randy, 17,000 miles on that truck now, Randy? Volunteers. Our campaign is truly volunteers, and so it has been amazing. I mean, Randy's driven, I don't know how many signs he's put out. We've got guys here who's knocked doors, and Sherry's worked hard, Heather and I have worked hard, our whole family, our whole team's worked hard, and so it's good to know that you can still win the old-fashioned way, and that's by grassroots. And I've said it a lot of times. I said, if you campaign among the people, you will govern for the people. If you campaign from an ivory tower, you will govern from an ivory tower. And we campaign among the people, and we're going to serve. But we're going to need help. We can't do this alone. We're not there yet. We got 18 days left. So y'all make sure you vote. I cherish the votes. I appreciate the support. It has been humbling for our family, I can tell you that. But we want to go up there with a servant's heart. We're going to kneel and seek the Lord and gather wisdom, and then we're going to stand and fight for what's right. So again, I cherish your prayers. I appreciate your support, and thank you for being here. Oh, yeah, questions. We'll do that. I'm going to take questions. I love to do that, and I actually would rather do that than speak, honestly. So if y'all got some easy questions, I'm all about them.
I got a real easy one.
Yes, ma'am.
Are you going to put an office in Prattville?
We are going to move north of Montgomery with the office. I will tell you that. A couple of things. That's some things I need to bring up. One thing, number one is we're going to move the office out of Montgomery, okay, up north of the river. Reason being is because right now you got to have an appointment to get in and see your congressman and their staff, and it shouldn't be that way. So we're going to be accessible. It'll be an open door policy. There'll be somebody manning that office. Another thing we're going to do is we're going to hopefully, the plan is to have a mobile office. And so that way, if there's a veterans hospital, the congressman's staff will be at the hospital on certain days. And we'll be at certain events. So if y'all need something, we're going to have it in the media ahead of time that the congressman's staff is going to be here. Please come see us. We're going to be available. I have always said that I wanted to be in every county, and that's the best way we know to do it. So we're going to set up a couple offices in the population centers and then one mobile office. Heather is going to be giving tours. She's moving up to D.C. We're getting an apartment. Our youngest is in Auburn now. He's the caboose, so we're empty nesters. So she's coming to D.C. to live with me, work free of charge for the taxpayer, and give tours. Free. Oh, it costs me more than you'll ever know. But anyway, so she's going to give tours out of my office in D.C. So if you guys got a school group, if y'all got leadership groups, if you got economic development groups, FFA groups, political groups, whatever group they are, please make her work. Come see us, because we love our hometown people. My favorite thing, one of my favorite things was when I was in the legislature, you'll probably like this, when the fourth graders came to Montgomery. I would get to go kind of when they did the tours, you know. And then most of the fourth graders were more mature than the legislators that I was dealing with all day. So it was always nice for me to get an opportunity. But we love our people, and we love making them feel at home. So that is going to be something that our office will be open door policy here, as well as in D.C. and in the other offices, and we're going to be mobile. So we will advertise when we're coming, so you'll know we're going to be here. If you got veterans that's got issues, if y'all got ag issues, like I said, anything that you need, our staff is going to be available. We're going to be as accessible as anybody you've ever dealt with in elected office.
But a more like specific answer, we are, of course, trying to decide between Wetumpka and Prattville as far as moving our office north. And that's the toughest decision because Elmore and Autauga counties have been
very good to us. It'll be up here close enough.
I mean, yeah.
Maybe settle in Millbrook.
We might.
I haven't signed a lease yet.
Maybe. We'll probably end up in commercial. I know. It's like rival gangs. It's like Enterprise and Dothan.
Yes, rival gangs.
But we do think it makes sense for us to move it north. Autauga and Elmore counties are both really red counties, and it just, even for people who live in Montgomery County, they would probably rather drive to Prattville or Wetumpka and have a good place to park and be able to go straight in. Right now, you've got to go downtown Montgomery, find a place to park, parking meter, whatever, and then the building it's in has, 4 layers of security, and, we want our staff to be secure, but we don't want it to be that inaccessible. So we feel like even for people in Montgomery County, which we won Montgomery County also, and we were grateful for that, it's nothing against Montgomery County. It's just downtown Montgomery, logistically, is just a nightmare for people trying to get into the office. And so, and two, with the mobile office, we're hoping that will, allow us to go to some of the more rural counties. If you live in Butler County, right, or Bullitt County, and you've got to drive to either Dothan, Prattville, or Andalusia, I mean, none of those are really convenient. It's 15 counties. So we're hoping to take that bus with 2 staffers 3 days a week into the more rural areas and be able to access people maybe that are older and they can't drive, an hour one way to meet their congressman.
We find that a lot too with the veterans, because we used to have to get, every year in the state budget, it was frustrating to me, they'd pull the funding out for the vans to take the veterans to their appointments. And so it was a fight every year, and it wasn't that much money. It's like $100-something thousand just to keep transportation for our veterans. And it was like we almost had to always go back to the chairman of Ways and Means and say, you struck them out again, put them back in. And so this way, when they're at their hospital, their Veterans Affairs appointments or at the VA, we can have the bus there on site, and when they're waiting on their appointment, they can come over and see our congressman. And so that's kind of the plan for that. That was brought to me actually by a comms director for Fort Rucker. He's retired now, but he said he just wished we could do something like that. So that's one of the things we're trying to be. We're trying to be kind of open-minded about how we approach it. We're going to kind of break the mold in a lot of ways. So, other good questions. That was a good question.
Sure.
Yes, sir.
Have you thought about splitting it between Wetumpka or part of a week or back and forth between Prattville and Wetumpka? You got people in Tallahassee that will never come to the interstate, say you put it to the interstate. And you got people almost in Selma who would never come, listen.
You're talking about the mobile unit?
Well,
No, he's talking about the permanent locations, but
Yeah, it's just that budgeting is a big issue. We have $1.3 million for everything for a year, for our entire staff, for all of our offices, rent, power, all of that, So, we'd love to have an office in every county, but then we just budgeting. But that's one thing we're trying to accomplish with the mobile unit. We can take the mobile unit to Tallahassee. We can take the mobile unit into these smaller towns and park at the city hall and be more accessible.
Mr. Mayor, what about getting a mobile home and just setting it up 1 month over in one county and another month? That make you happy? Yeah.
We'll put it in the Elmore County side of Prattville.
I did not mean to go down this rabbit hole that far. No, it's good. Good question, though.
Everything, it will be based on budgeting. We'll see, who offers us the best deal, the best rent.
Yeah, we don't want to blow your money, and that sounds like a lot of money, but when you start talking about staff in D.C., your rent, your leases and everything, you have to manage it, and hopefully we'll be able to stretch it out and you guys will see us on a regular basis.
We don't want to skimp on a staffer, like have one less staffer, because our rent's so high at one of our offices. We want to have a maximum staff so that when we take phone calls and have problems and issues, we have as many people possible working on your issues and your problems.
We always heard Bill Dickinson had a rule. I don't know, Harris, you may know this, but the phone can only ring twice in his office. Now, he was a great congressman, but I've had staffers tell me they were diving over the desk trying to get it before it got on that third ring. So we want to be as proactive as Dickinson was in that respect. And so, but like I said, we'll lay some groundwork, but I think some improvements we can readily make by moving, at least getting out of Montgomery. So I'm just going to say north of Montgomery. Will that be okay for now? Any other good questions or comments or concerns? Yes, sir.
All right. I've got 4 children, all college, high school age. And Mo Brooks had a program, I don't know, it was about 6 weeks ago, where he had all of the military academies come together at once. So all the kids who were interested could all go at once. We did this on a previous child, the old way with Martha Roby's office, and it takes months and months to track all the academies down. But he did it, and we went up there, and you were interested in the Air Force, there they were. You know, West Point.
West
right
Point,
there.
whatever, yeah.
And
That's a great idea.
it was,
Sure is.
if you want the best people to show, make it easy for them to get there.
Yeah.
And he had standing room only at his event.
That's a great idea. So,
Can you write that down?
yeah, anything like that. Anytime we see an opportunity to improve on the process, we're going to be open to that. So I think that's just common sense to me as far as an approach to it. And Mo and I get along well, so I'll pick his brain on how he pull that together and make sure that we.
He just did it about 6 weeks ago.
Did he? That's good news. I didn't know it, but that's good to know.
Yeah, great idea.
Yes, ma'am. In the back.
What is your views on the current unemployment situation, getting folks back to work and/or the little people like myself that was affected? I can't, the governor told me I couldn't go to work, but I can't collect unemployment either.
Yeah, I know Sherry's been dealing with a ton of these unemployment issues, so make sure you touch base with her. But my thoughts on this process, guys, is we need to bring, number one, I'm tired of the mask mandate, and I'm sorry if I'm offending anybody in the governor's office, but to me, it's time to open the economy back up. You know, we were told 15 days, 197 days ago to flatten the curve. And what we're doing now is hurting business. And so I don't want y'all to report this all over the country, but I guess it will be. The fact of the matter is we need to put people back to work, and the businesses have suffered. Heather and I went live the minute we got shut down because we couldn't do campaign events anymore. We would go live from our house. We were encouraging people to do takeout. We were interviewing car dealers. How can we help you sell cars? We'll bring them out. We'll let them test drive them at their homes. So, because I own a small business. I knew what kind of economic impact we were about to have on communities. And so what I want to see us do, and what I think we should do, is let people go back to work and stop tax withholding. No state income tax, no federal income tax. Then those people, because if you pay them to sit at the house, they're going to stay at the house. And there are help wanted signs everywhere. We broke records I think it was last quarter in rehires. We're trying to open the economy back up. And right now, if we don't get people back to work and get these small businesses back on their feet, it's going to have the impact of the shutdown is going to be more costly and more dramatic than the virus itself is ever going to have. And so I've been a proponent of getting the economy back open, getting people back to work. I mean, sure, there are people with health risk. I understand that. And I don't think they ought to be out, like I said the other day, don't need to be out licking doorknobs and getting in the middle of that. But if you're healthy and you're young, especially getting our kids back to school, they've been locked up and locked down and shut down for a while. We need to get the kids back in school. We need to get business back open. And so my thoughts on that is let people come back to work, but don't do any withholding on taxes. Let them work tax-free. Then that allows you to get people back to work. They get extra money, and it gives us an employee base to draw from because we need employees right now. A lot of the restaurants I'm talking to, especially when they did not the triple P, but the unemployment programs, a lot of people, when they were getting $800 or $600 a week, they couldn't find help. And so it's tough to open your business when you can't find people to do the work. And so we need to get people back to work. And so I'm a big proponent of that.
In the military, I know they're doing that, and they're trying. I know the Congress right now is trying to decide whether or not to, I guess, forgive that, because otherwise it becomes taxable at some point. This work tax-free, would it be a forgiven thing?
Absolutely. What you're talking about is a payroll protection plan. Anything less than $50,000 right now, the last thing I saw is you're not going to have to pay that back as a small business owner, provided you kept your jobs, kept your people on board. There's not many parameters that's going to change. But if you come back to work tax-free, I don't think the government should go back 6 months from now and say, oh, we need to collect all the taxes that it didn't withhold, and you don't have a, in other words,
No, this is actually U.S. military.
Yeah, they're actually not, they're saying they're going to let them work tax-free right now?
Yes.
And they'll owe the taxes later. That is one of the big concerns
Yeah.
we've had. I know, Sherry, we've had some phone calls about that.
Yeah.
Like, we don't want to be tax-free right now if we're just going to owe a chunk later.
Yeah, I agree. Yes, because people, like you said, and instead of getting a refund, they end up getting a big bill at the end of the filing.
Well, I
Yeah.
have a daughter who's worried about that. She's like, I don't know, I've got this extra, but I don't know what, I might have to pay it all back, and so she's.
There's a lot of confusion surrounding, because our son-in-law right now, he's in Iraq. And Kathleen was just asking me about this the other day. She's like, honestly, if we're going to just owe it, we'd just rather, because they don't really need money right now. He's in Iraq. She's back at home living for free. You know, and she's like, we don't want a tax bill at the end of the year, we'd rather just pay it like we've been paying it. So there's a lot of confusion around it. We don't really know. I mean, do we really know, Sherry, if they're gonna owe it at the end or not?
Well, supposedly it's just in the works.
Right, and I think a little bit, the last I heard was anything under 50,000 for small business owners, but I didn't realize the military was doing that. So I certainly don't think there should be a liability at the end of that, because if we print money, we're gonna owe it anyway, so why not just give a tax break and let people keep the money and go back to work, right? So that's kind of my thoughts on that. But if I find anything out, if we hear anything, I hadn't heard anything about that. I heard about the Triple P, but I hadn't heard about the military yet. So. Anyhow, that's a good question.
Hey.
Yes, ma'am.
I have a fine dining restaurant, and I can't pay my bills at 50%. That needs to end.
Oh, I'm with you. When I'm
50% and 6 feet apart, and not a single customer in there wants that.
No, and you know, turning people away too. I'm seeing restaurants turn people away because they only got 50% capacity, and it's just horrible. No.
With a power bill of $2,000 a month and a mortgage, and there's no way. I can't operate at 50%, and I can't find help.
I couldn't agree more. And I think, like I said, when I'm talking about mask mandates, I'm talking about opening the economy back up and letting everybody go back to living life normal, because the long-term impact of that is going to be a whole lot worse than somebody getting sick for 3 or 4 or 5 days. And believe me, I know there's some people got sick and there's some people died from this virus, but right now the economic impact and the health and mental health of the American people has to be one of the things we look at in the process. And so, yes, ma'am, I would have opened it back up a little while back if it was up to me. I don't want to be too hypercritical though. Yes, sir, Paul.
Barry, what's your thoughts on what's going on in reference to the state was getting money from the federal government for small businesses? For example, you know, I run a law firm, and I was able to get a grant by the state that money was coming in from the federal government for small businesses. That was up to $15,000, I think, for people that did not participate in the PPP program. So the question is what is your thoughts? Are we going to get federal dollars that are going to go to the state, where if they miss out on this PPP, that there would be money available here that KI would be able to give out in reference to small businesses?
Is that the economic injury disaster loan, Paul, EIDL you're talking about? Yeah, I don't know if Pelosi and those guys have come out with a specific on that yet. It's kind of like the moving target on the Triple P. I know the Triple P right now, I understand he's under 50,000, but I don't know about the EIDL, because I'm familiar with the loans. I know what you're talking about. That's a low interest loan you'll pay back at some point. It's a grant, so you don't have to pay it back at all. Yeah, I'm not sure 100% what they're going to do on that yet, and so that's something we'll just have to. If I hear anything, or I'll try and ask around, kind of see what the thoughts are on the Hill right now, but I haven't heard anything about it as far as the forgiveness on that.
On the PPP, that's, you know, money ran out just like that. And so your only recourse was to look to the state, and just hopefully that the state will have money.
Yeah, and again, I don't know. I need to check into that. I hadn't heard. I knew about the economic injury disaster loans they were giving out, and I think that's similar to a grant, but I wasn't sure if there was a cap on the amount. Bill, do you know?
Well, there's also a lot of money the state has that has been earmarked that it cannot spend. I mean, I know they're talking about maybe putting another $300 million into different pots of money, but it's going to be important that after this election that we take away some of the restrictions so the state doesn't have to send back money. I mean, we'll have some restrictions, but you know, there may be the money that we need. It's already there.
Yeah.
We'll have to send it back if we don't.
Yeah, I heard there was still a bunch of money, and I was talking to somebody in the governor's office a couple of weeks ago. They said they're not able to spend yet because of strings attached. So I'm like you, there needs to be some process to restore small businesses that suffered, that maybe didn't have a bunch of employees, but still tried to keep the doors open, which the Triple P worked, but like I said, it run out once you made a few payrolls. But yeah, that might be something if we could figure out how to free the money up to get it to the businesses that were able to stay open. You know? And even the ones that weren't. Right. Those are good questions. Okay, any other questions? Well, thank you all so much for your time. I appreciate it, and we'll be around for a little bit if you have any questions, and please come see us in D.C. once we get there, but you got to vote to get us there. Thank you.